welcome to This Week in Video Games, episode 125. My name is Tom Kershaw, and this is a podcast all about the world of video games. Well, this week I've been playing a lot of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and been getting lost in Hyrule plenty of times. Also this week, I'm going to round up the latest PlayStation showcase from the past week, plus we got all the latest video game news, and a new game from Bungie to talk about, so it is a busy show as always. So let's get to it. And welcome to the show, everyone. I hope you're well and you're having a good week. Yeah, I'm good this week, and it's been a few weeks since we have spoken. So that's my bad. Me and my wife went away for our early summer holiday in Barcelona. Very, very nice indeed. Definitely recommend it if you can get to that part of the world. Then, Tears of the Kingdom came out, and to be honest, I've just been getting lost in that world. So it's really good to speak to you again, and I'm back with all the latest news and reviews from the world of video games. Well, this week it was a big week for PlayStation, albeit with the results being a little bit mixed. Yeah, Sony put on their big summer showcase and opened the doors on their live service plans. The showcase got a mixed to lukewarm reception from fans, which is strange for Sony, given we're so used to them putting out bangers when it comes to their showcase. I think some Sony state of plays have been mediocre in the past, but the showcase label tends to mean it is a big deal, and later on I'm going to round up all the latest game announcements, so we'll get to that in a little bit. So one of those announcements, well, that was a new IP from Bungie, or at least an IP being brought out of their back catalogue, and that is Marathon. So Bungie are stepping into the world of extraction shooters with Marathon. It's going to be a dedicated PvP game, so no separate PvE elements, even though story is going to be built into the PvP game through character and environmental storytelling. So later on, I'm going to go into an interview with their game director to find out more about the game. A new IP from Bungie is massive, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Well, before we get into it today, it'd be great if you could leave a review over there on Apple Podcasts. It would really help get the podcast, get some more eyes on it. I do have a link in the podcast description or the show notes, so if you like the show and you want to leave a review, I would really, really appreciate it. Plus, I'll read out the review on a future episode of the podcast. Well, that is going to be it for my waffly intro, so let's get into what I've been playing this week. Well, this week I've been playing plenty of Tears of the Kingdom, and that came out just about 2 weeks ago, although it seems like it came out months ago. I've been loving Tears of the Kingdom, but does it live up to the lofty expectations set by Breath of the Wild? Well, we're just going to have to find out first up in the show. I've also been playing Destiny 2's new season, the Season of the Deep, where Bungie has introduced fishing into the game for the first time, and fans have surprisingly been really excited by it. So the game has been tweaked and modified a lot this season. Weapons, armor, sandbox, more story elements, all been added into the game. I'm not quite ready to talk about Season of the Deep just yet, but I will be back in a few weeks' time to talk more Destiny 2. Well, without further delay, let's get into my first impressions of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom has landed, and it's a huge game full of puzzles, new story, new abilities, and a whole load of secrets too. I'm about 45 to 50 hours in the game at the moment, and I think this is a good time to have a look at my first impressions of the game and whether Tears of the Kingdom has lived up to my very high expectations. Well, before we get going here, a warning, there will be mild gameplay spoilers, so I'm not going to get into story spoilers at all, but I will be talking about gameplay, abilities, and also different parts of Hyrule. So if you are at all sensitive to gameplay spoilers, then do click away now. Well, first things first, we should start with the opening to the game. I absolutely love the start, the confidence of Nintendo with the Nintendo Presents, and then the understated Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in a very small font in the middle of the screen. Really confident start, and then it threw us into the first sequence with Link and Zelda exploring under Hyrule. So the pair, they are underground, exploring the Hyrule ruins, looking at Zonai murals, and the gameplay and cutscenes are mixed together really well here, where we're controlling Link and helping out Princess Zelda in the ruins. As we saw from the trailers, we discover the mummified body of the Demon King. He attacks Link and Zelda with malice. Link is scorched and wounded, while Princess Zelda falls into the depths and disappears, so it is a real strong cinematic opening. Link then wakes up on the Great Sky Island, which acts as the tutorial for the game, albeit this felt a lot larger to me than the Great Plateau. Link wakes up in a cave, rescues the broken Master Sword from the ground, then works through a network of caves, only to emerge on a platform where we dive off and fly through the air in one of the best openings to the game I've ever experienced, or at least experienced in a long time. So the visuals and the music are working really hard here for an exhilarating opening sequence. Link then dives into the water and meets various Zonai constructs afterwards, and they point Link in the direction of the Temple of Time, which traditionally has looked like a Western-style church cathedral. However, now it looks more like a Japanese architecture, or at least it has Japanese architecture origins, which I definitely really appreciated. So at the Temple of Time, we meet Raru, who explains he saved Link from a near-fatal attack and had to replace Link's arm with his own. Link then is sent out to 4 shrines in the Great Sky Island to recover various abilities. These include Ultra Hand, Ascend, Fuse, and Recall. So Ultra Hand is the star of the show, which allows Link to put together objects and make things. First of all, they're kind of platforms and structures, but later on, combined with various Zonai devices, you can make complex machines and vehicles. Ultra Hand is impressive in so many ways, but the fact it just simply works, and works the way you'd expect, is incredible. Ascend is the ability to travel up through ceilings, and that makes getting out of caves and making the use of verticality in Tears of the Kingdom nice and easy. Apparently Ascend was a dev tool which would help the dev team get out of areas quickly, and IGL Numa and the team decided just to put the ability in the game for players. Ascend is also the ability that I forget about the most, and when I started the game I would play it in a very similar manner to Breath of the Wild. I would be trying to climb everything, forgetting that I had the magical ability to ascend through ceilings. Well, Fuse is the ability to merge weapons, so arrows, and also shields together as well. So given the attack on Hyrule by Ganondorf, all the weapons in the world have been corroded, which promotes the use of Fuse. Enemies now have horns and blades attached to their bodies thanks to Ganondorf, and that means when you kill an enemy you can harvest their monster parts for Fuse material. For example, fuse a bokoblin horn to a sword, you not only make it more durable, but you're going to increase the attack power as well. Fusing weapons and items is key to making them last longer, as well as creating powerful weapons to take on enemies, so you can create melee weapons but also fuse things to your shield. You can simply fuse 2 shields together to make a strong shield, or you can add a rocket to your shields to travel upwards nice and quickly. The key to fuse is experimentation. Gone are the elemental arrows. Now you've got to fuse materials with arrows to create elemental arrows. For example, different coloured choo-choo jelly creates different effects. Fire for red, white for ice, and so on and so forth. We got shock fruit for electric arrows, fire fruit for fire arrows, muddle buds for confusion arrows. The combinations just feel limitless and totally interesting. Recall is another new ability, and that gives Link the ability to rewind objects through time, opening up a whole load of potential when it comes to solving puzzles. This is another one that took a little bit of getting used to, but when you get into the swing of things, it is really good, especially when it comes to traversing the environment. You've got aerial gliders you can pick up with Ultra Hand, mimicking, throwing them like a paper plane, then letting go at the right time to use that momentum to fly the glider. I also love Link's casual snap of the finger when dismissing Recall. Is one of my favourite animations in the game. Once you get these abilities, then it's down to Hyrule proper, having spent a bunch of time in the Sky Islands. Hyrule has changed. Big pieces of the Sky Island have fallen onto the ground, creating destruction in some cases. The Hyrule that we know and love from Breath of the Wild is here, but characters have moved on and story arcs have progressed, and Hyrule is also in a state of reconstruction, given its recovery from Calamity Ganon. So there's building material all over the place, which is handy given you've got abilities to stick things together and create all kinds of vehicles and structures with Ultra Hand. Tarry Town is a particular delight, and you'll discover that later on in your journey. Memories return in Tears of the Kingdom, although Nintendo has done a lot of quality of life improvements, compared to Breath of the Wild. Story moments, they are still delivered by looking back into the past, although this time it comes in the form of Dragon's Tears, which can be found at the huge glyphs found all over Hyrule. These are drawings on the ground which can be seen best from great heights. Search around these glyphs on the ground, you're going to find a small pool of water containing the tears of a dragon, which are converted to flashbacks for Link. I found this system much better in terms of engaging with the story. Breath of the Wild did something similar with the memories in the camera, but I found finding the right spot for the memories in Breath of the Wild felt much more obtuse than this mechanism in Tears of the Kingdom. We've got to travel around Hyrule to unlock towers anyway, and finding a new glyph then hunting for the tear was really, really good fun. Talking of towers, they have returned, but this time they shoot you into the sky rather than having to climb each of them one by one. So climbing was front and centre in Breath of the Wild, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it's much more dynamic, and skydiving is the new mechanic of freedom. So what better way of getting into the sky quickly by being shot into the sky with a huge cannon? This can be a problem if you don't have the paraglider, which isn't just handed to you like it is in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom does a great job in subtly directing you where to go. So getting the paraglider is still on the main path, but it is possible to miss. I've heard a bunch of stories from players who didn't get the glider immediately and have been asking where it was. Another feature that has returned from Breath of the Wild, they are shrines, and they've been given a new swirl of green energy coming out the top, making them easy to find. The shrines are just as creative as ever, and with that suite of abilities that Link now has, they're even more challenging. I've gone into a shrine expecting a 10-minute puzzle. I've been stuck in there for nearly an hour, and the combination of Ultra Hand, Fuse, Recall, and Ascend make for really, really entertaining shrines. Plus, they do act as tutorials for your abilities, so try and do as many shrines as possible early in the game, because they're not only going to give you hearts or stamina, but they'll teach you abilities and also how to use these Zonai devices too. Zonai devices are a new addition to the game, which are part of the suite of tools you can stick together using Ultra Hand or Fuse to your weapons and shields. So there's many Zonai devices in the game. They range from fans, fire emitters, wheels, balloons, and a whole load more things as well. Zonai devices can be found in Zonai dispensers, which look like huge pachinko machines, found all over Hyrule. It's good to hunt these devices out and find new devices because they really open up the gameplay in Tears of the Kingdom, and they are the way that you find new Zonai devices. Side quests have been really fleshed out in Tears of the Kingdom as well as the characters and the NPC stories. There were side quests in Breath of the Wild, but I feel like they were much more engaging here in Tears of the Kingdom, with many of them being elevated to main story status. One of my favourites includes opening up the Great Fairy Fountains, which is slightly different to Breath of the Wild. There, all you have to do is find the fountains. Here, you have to wake up each individual fairy with a wandering band, playing them a song each time you get to visit a new fountain. And as well as getting the band back together, you unlock new armor upgrades and also build some great Zonai machines along the way. Okay, next up I'm going to get into some gameplay spoilers now, which haven't been widely discussed by Nintendo, so consider this your warning number 2, and click away now if you really don't want to know. Well, still with me? Okay, so much of the marketing was focused around the Sky Islands in Tears of the Kingdom, but actually I've spent more time under Hyrule than in the sky. We've got a whole other map under Hyrule called the Depths, which is dark, it's dank, and it's dangerous. Early in Tears of the Kingdom, we're given a quest from Robbie to go into the Depths to learn more about our camera feature on the Purapad. And there's that moment where you run into Hyrule Field, you see a chasm, the huge black and red hole in the middle of the ground, then you jump in and you're diving for roughly the same amount of time it takes to get from the sky to the ground. The music changes, it's dark and there's gloom everywhere. That's the red and the black substance covering the ground and enemies in the depths, and also the ground above Hyrule as well. I haven't spent as much time as I'd like to in the depths. I really need to explore more, but that first time you dive down there and realise it's as big as Hyrule is one of the best moments that I can remember, and Nintendo did really, really well to prevent this information from getting out before the game released. They even showed the depths briefly in trailers, and I don't think anyone put 2 and 2 together. Elden Ring did something similar, but the underground section in Elden Ring is not half as big as in Tears of the Kingdom, and the depths really remind me of the Dark World in A Link to the Past, although rather than a parallel world, this is a layer beneath Hyrule. Something else we didn't find out until hours from launch is the confirmation that dungeons are back in this mainline Zelda game. That was rumoured and then confirmed by IG Aonuma and the team very close to launch through the developer Q&A. So we've got regional temples related to the different races, so Gerudo, Rito, Zora and Goron, that translates to lightning, wind, water and fire temples. I don't think they are quite as engaging as traditional Zelda temples. For example, they don't reach the same heights as Twilight Princess, but I do think they are better than the Divine Beasts found in Breath of the Wild. I think they sit somewhere between the Divine Beasts and traditional Zelda dungeons, so getting to the temple is a journey itself. For example, getting to the Wind Temple felt epic, and it gave me that sense of scale and verticality. I'm going to remember that for a long time. So there's definitely a lot that I love about Tears of the Kingdom, but there are some things that still could be improved. Combat is still a little bit janky, especially when compared to other similar open world action games. I also found myself doing the temples back to back after some exploration, and that made narrative moments quite repetitive, and the boss fights in the temples were a bit hit and miss, and the whole water temple was hit and miss for me, to be honest. In terms of performance, mostly it's fine. There are some moments where the game struggles, but it hasn't really interrupted my enjoyment of the game. The fact that this is 16 gigabytes running on hardware which is outperformed by a mobile phone these days is very, very impressive. So I don't really buy into the graphics argument. I like the style of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I actually think Tears of the Kingdom looks even better. The polish is absolutely incredible, and many developers have taken to social media to question exactly how this game was made, the physics, the engine, the fact you can pretty much make anything in the game, and the game just wants you to break it. You know, it's a semi-technical miracle that this game even exists. It's almost unfair. You know, Nintendo have raised the bar once again, and it feels like other teams are so far behind what Nintendo is doing in Tears of the Kingdom, it's just going to take years to catch up. Even Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, and one of the only games that have come anywhere close is Elden Ring, and that released 5 years after Breath of the Wild. And with these new mechanics, Nintendo have taken Zelda up to another level. It's going to be a long time before any other team is there. And throughout the whole experience so far, I've been sitting there as I did as a kid, playing through the latest Zelda game, cramming as much game time in as I possibly can without damaging the other parts of my life. You know, it's been an absolute pleasure to be in this game at the ground floor and being part of the conversation online. Now, I don't know if it's ultimately better than Breath of the Wild, but personally, I'm enjoying the experience of playing through this much more than I did with that first game. I'm roughly 45 to 50 hours in at the moment, and I've still got a long way to go. I'm excited to finish up the latest adventure in Hyrule. Well, that is it for my first impressions of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I would love to know what you think about Tears of the Kingdom. Let me know at TWIVG Podcast on Twitter, or you can comment down there in the comments here. I would love to hear what you think about Tears of the Kingdom. Well, that is it for now for Tears of the Kingdom. And next up, we had the PlayStation Showcase this week. It was the big blockbuster showcase from Sony to kick off the summer. Well, next up, let's check out all the announcements. Well, for this one, I do have to thank Wesley Yin Poole from Eurogamer, so thank you, Wesley. I also noted that Wesley is leaving Eurogamer, so thank you very, very much for all your years of service. Really, really enjoyed reading all of your articles, and good luck for the future. Okay, back to the PlayStation Showcase. So Sony's hotly anticipated PlayStation Showcase is over. We've now got a clearer idea of what PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2 owners can expect to hit their hardware over the next year. So we got a whole lot of what we expected, so Spider-Man 2, Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake and Final Fantasy 16, and also a few surprises as well. Well, the PlayStation Showcase kicked off with a cinematic trailer for Haven's PlayStation exclusive Fair Games, described as a competitive modern heist game where you team up to break into exotic locations and steal the cargo. Well, next up we had third-person co-op shooter Helldivers 2 from Arrowhead Game Studios, and that is a remake of an old game, and they have changed perspective. It is now over the shoulder rather than top-down. Well, moving on to a new trailer from Ascendant Studios, that is the first-person magic shooter Immortals of Avernum. That one is published by EA and is due out in July. 505 Games and One More Level revealed Ghost Runner 2 is coming to PC and consoles later on in the year. And quickfire action RPG Phantom Blade Zero, well, that looked very, very good. That is from a developer called Cruelman Studio, and this was their debut trailer, and I think this is the studio's debut game. Really, really impressive. Loads of melee action. Really, really good stuff. Next up, we had a game from Giant Squid Studios, the developer of Abzu. This one is Sword of the Sea. They also developed Journey as well. Well, the next game from Giant Squid Studios, developer of Abzu, is Sword of the Sea, and that looked really, really good. Definitely had Journey vibes, that one. Moving on, so Crow Team and Devolver Digital announced the Talos Principle 2. That is due out later in the year. Devolver Digital and the Gree developer Namada Studio announced Never, due out in 2024. Well, next up we had Cat Quest, Pirates of the Caribbean, and that one looks like it's going to be a cute little adventure game due out in 2024. Square Enix turned up with a game that looks remarkably similar to Nintendo's Splatoon, and it's called Foam Stars, and it really, really did look like Splatoon. That looks like an interesting game from Square Enix. Well, the next game is more interesting. The Plucky Squire comes out later on this year. It looks really, really good. Well, next up we've got Teardown. That one is coming to consoles, and that definitely scratches the Minecraft itch, although it is all about heists and also blowing stuff up as well. That one is out this year on console. And up next we've got one of the worst kept secrets in video games, Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. It's called Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, and there's also a new OG Metal Gear Solid collection, and that is due out later on in the year. Well, next from Dreamlit Games, there's an open world builder called Towers of Agazba, and also then we had the Final Fantasy XVI launch trailer, so Clive and the Gang looks like a really, really good game. Can't wait to get my hands on that one. Epic and Remedy revealed the debut trailer for Alan Wake 2. That is due on the 17th of October 2023. And also we had our first look at Assassin's Creed Mirage, coming from Ubisoft. That one is out in October. Finji announced Revenant Hill, that is the debut game from the Glory Society. And then Cygames action RPG Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, that is due out in the winter. Street Fighter 6, so this one looks really, really good. New trailer focused on World Tour mode, and that is the single player campaign, and that is out in only a few days' time. Ultros is a psychedelic side-scrolling action game due out in 2024, but don't stare at it for too long. And moving on, we got a launch trailer for Tower of Fantasy. This is an open-world RPG coming out in the summer. And finally, we had a trailer for Dragon's Dogma 2. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 comes out in late 2023, and then Sony moved on to PSVR 2 games, starting out with Resident Evil 4's hotly anticipated VR mode. And then sticking with PSVR 2, we got a trailer for Arizona Sunshine 2, and Smilegate revealed another PSVR shooter, Crossfire Sierra Squad, and In Dreams announced a 4th of July release date for PSVR 2 shooter Synapse. That looks really, really good. And then Beat Saber finally for PSVR 2, plus a Queen music pack. Yes, many people expected this one to be out on day and date when this released, but Beat Saber is finally on PSVR 2. Okay, Sony-owned Bungie revealed its next game, Marathon, a new sci-fi PvP extraction shooter. Sticking with Bungie, got a new trailer for Destiny 2, The Final Shape, and Cade 6 was back. Concord is a new PvP multiplayer first-person shooter from Firewalk Studios that is launching in 2024, and that is from a lot of people from Bungie who went over to make Firewalk Studios, so that is going to be really interesting for that one. Another big announcement, so Sony revealed Project Q, a DualSense controller with a screen powered by the cloud. So that is a very interesting tactic from Sony. I'm not really sure who this is for, but it did look like an interesting piece of kit. Well, the big finish, it was Insomniac Spider-Man 2, due out in autumn as Sony's main PS5 exclusive. So we start with Kraven the Hunter to reveal the trailer, and then we got a 10-minute gameplay video, including Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and also Spidey wearing the Venom suit. Well, that was all that Sony had to show for its PlayStation Showcase in May 2023. So let me know down in the comments, or let me know on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. Let me know what you thought of that PlayStation Showcase. Well, that is it for now for the PlayStation Showcase, but next up, let's have a look at the all-platform charts. Well, number 10, we got Dead Island 2. That is down 4 places from last week's number 6. At number 9, holding steady, it's Animal Crossing New Horizons. At number 8, holding steady, it's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And at number 7 is a new entry, Lego 2K Drive. At number 6, it's Pokemon Scarlet. That is up 12 places from last week's number 18. And holding steady at number 5, it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Down 1 place from last week's number 3, at number 4, this one is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And then at number 3, down 1 from last week's number 2, is Hogwarts Legacy. At number 2, up 2 places from last week's number 4, it's FIFA 23. And then still in at number 1, this is the best game of the year, it's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Well, that is it for now for the all-platform charts, but at the Sony Showcase, we got a new IP announcement from Bungie. So Bungie have been working on Destiny 2 for 10 years plus at this point. It is the 10-year anniversary next year, but they have a new IP or a resurgent IP coming back, and this one is Marathon. So let's go over and find out more about their new IP now. Let's find out more about Marathon. Well, Marathon is the new game that Bungie's been working on. If you're familiar with the codename Matter, then this is that game. Bungie are resurrecting one of their old IPs, Marathon, but it's not a sequel or a prequel, it's simply set in the same universe. Well, today I'm going to check out the info in an interview with Scott Taylor and the game director, Christopher Barrett, and we can find out more about the new game coming from the creators of Halo and Destiny 2. Well, the interviewer says, today you announced Marathon, the first entirely new project announcement from Bungie in more than a decade. You know, how hard has it been to keep this one under wraps for so long? Well, so hard, it's been wild talking about this game in front of the world. I mean, it's been under wraps for so long, but as a team, we've been completely immersed in developing this world behind closed doors at Bungie, even though there is still a long way to go before release. It's fantastic to be able to open up even just a little and share what we've all been working on. The name Marathon obviously conjures up visions of the original game from 1994, but this is something new. Well, finding the right balance is one of the most fun parts of development. We've had a tremendous amount of respect for the other Marathon games from the very start. We wanted to honour that, especially the mythology, the story, the themes of the world. At the same time, our vision for the game is something new. It's not a direct sequel to the originals, but something that certainly belongs in the same universe and that feels like a Bungie game. Finding those opportunities to nod to the universe lore, whilst also getting to build something different and new, has been one of the best parts of developing this game so far. It's our aim to create something incredible, both for players who are completely new to Marathon, and also for those who've been waiting for years for more stories in the Marathon universe. You don't need to know anything about Marathon to understand or play the game, but if you do, we've made the experience with references and deep cuts that you will recognise. Well, you mentioned that Marathon will feel like a Bungie game. What does that exactly mean for you? Well, there are many elements as to what makes a Bungie game. To me, it runs the gamut of incredible feel of the weapons to the beautiful and evocative world building, rich in lore, the immersion, and opportunities for an incredible adventure. With Marathon, one of the areas that is a big focus for us is our player-based storytelling. The original Marathon games revealed story moments through terminals, all in text. But now, we've got so many more ways to immerse the players in the world, both in and out of the game, and we're going to be carrying out that through the design of the game. Our design philosophy here is to have players affect the story of the world through their choices and their actions. This approach also lets us shape the overall narrative direction of the game experience, while giving players a direct sense of agency and power. Marathon is designed from the start as a PvP-focused game, and it won't have a single-player campaign. Instead, with the PvP experience as our foundation, we're creating opportunities for player-driven stories to unfold, stories that are integrated with the overarching game narrative, and we're building a world full of persistent evolving zones, where players create their own journey with every run that they take. That might mean an unforgettable firefight against another crew vying for the same loot, or the last-second extraction while beset on all sides. Now, beyond just the story of your last run, however, we want to give players the chance to affect these persistent zones in the larger world as a result. For example, imagine a crew discovering a previously undiscovered artifact that, when activated, opens a new area of the map for all players to explore. In essence, we're creating a game where the actions of the players can have ramifications in the world and players with each unfolding season. So, a new kind of storytelling for Bungie. What else will feel new for the players? Well, it's a PvP first game, something that we've never done before. That means a focus on all things that people think about when they want a great competitive experience. Things like creating moments of tension and building weapons that look, feel and sound amazing. We also want to make sure that players have tons of strategic choices, both in terms of gear available and their loadouts, but also on the ground in terms of tactical options, entrance, exfil points and so on. Beyond those fundamentals, we're focused on the approachability and competitive integrity, which are huge points of emphasis for us. So we're prioritising security and focusing on vigorous anti-cheat measures, as well as dedicated servers, global data centres, active community conversations and feedback, and more. Ultimately, we want to ensure that the competitive experience in Marathon is fair and fun for every player. Extraction shooter brings to mind players dying, losing their stuff, tedious gear management, a huge time investment to get back in what was lost, and so on. How is the team approaching these kinds of issues with Marathon? This is something we think about on a regular basis. We want the game to have a sense of danger and tension. We want it to be thrilling and always to have the sense that this run is going to be unforgettable. At the same time, it's true, the traditional extraction genre tropes can be frustrating, especially for new players. One of the ways we're addressing this is by making one of the core fantasies of survival and extraction fun, clear, and easy to understand. We want people to quickly understand the fundamentals like healing, or oxygen, or how to organise their gear. After all, if they get all these things intuitively, then there's much more room for tactical thinking and creativity. It's our job to create the fun and the fantasy, not the busy work and the tedium. The second thing is, and I can't talk about this too much right now, and that is there's so many ways to win in Marathon, and only some of them require getting out alive. In essence, we think there's an opportunity for players to still have fun, to be fulfilled and rewarded, even if they don't make it to an exfil. So do you only fight other players in Marathon? Well, the heart of Marathon's gameplay experience is PvP, but that isn't the entire story. We're building a rich, immersive world that will have ample opportunities for exploration and conflict, both against other players and AI-controlled enemies. Combine that with the different objectives and motivations that players will have for each run, as well as the narrative doors that can be unlocked, as well as players discovering things and accomplishing tasks, and it creates this really nice palette of gameplay possibilities that will only continue to grow and evolve. Well, you said Marathon is currently in development. What does that mean, and do you have a timeline for when fans will hear more about the game? Well, there's still a lot of more work to do before launch, or even before we're ready to talk about the game in a little bit more detail. The team is hard at work, and we've got a great base to start from, but there's still so much more to do, including continuing to grow our team. That is one of the most challenging parts of game development, hiring, when everything is still under wraps. Now that we're announced, I'm excited because we can be much more candid about the positions that we're looking for and talk more openly to candidates about the work that's going on and our vision for the game. If you're interested, you can check out the Bungie careers page to see our open positions, which we are constantly updating with roles as needed. Come and work with us. We're working on something that we feel is really special. I know that fans are interested in learning more about Marathon. Believe me, we can't wait to show you more. And while we can't really give you a timeline on when that information will be coming, what I can say is this. The next time you hear about us from Marathon, we're going to be able to show you the gameplay, and we are going to be much closer to launch. Well, we can't wait for more. Until then, do you have a story to share from your best Marathon run so far? Well, so many come to mind. It's funny because for me, when I think about my best runs, I don't necessarily jump to a run where I got my biggest artifact or dominated with kills. I think about how excited I am was to share something insane and unexpected that happened with my friends on the team. For example, I always like to go into the world with a plan, but then that to be open and the plan to be challenged by what I see happening around me. One time I was on my way to collect some data from this greenhouse to complete the contract for a Traxxas. I got completely lit up by another crew and some ticks that were poisoning me. I escaped somehow, but I was in rough shape. I changed my objective just to get out alive. and as I tried to sneak my way to the exfil, I came across a container with a weapon I've been looking for with some of the best mods in the game. So now I was doubly focused on getting out alive, and as I made it to the exfil, I saw a crew on top of the building looking for runners. I was able to hold my exfil as they came after me and get out. It was so tense coming out of that, I couldn't wait to share what has happened. And if you want to find out more about Marathon, you can check out www.marathonthegame.com. Well, I don't know about you, really exciting stuff there from Marathon, and this is a new IP from Bungie, a new PvP focused game, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it. And yes, I will be covering it on This Week in Video Games. Well, that is it for now for Marathon. Really exciting stuff. Let me know down in the comments what you think about Marathon, or you can hit me up on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. Would really love to hear what you think about the new game from Bungie. Well, that is it for Marathon for the moment, but next up, let's check out all the latest video game news. First of all, Overwatch 2's long-promised flagship PvE mode, well, that has been scrapped, and this one comes from Eurogamer. So Blizzard has cancelled Overwatch 2's much-trumpeted but long-delayed PvE mode, admitting development hasn't made the progress we would have hoped. PvE was presented as a flagship feature of Overwatch 2 when the team-based shooter sequel was unveiled in 2019, but as development dragged on and 2022 arrived, Blizzard announced it would be decoupling PvE from PvP in order to get the game into players' hands sooner. Well, to that end, a fully PvP-focused version of Overwatch 2 finally launched in October, and little has been heard about the once key PvE component in the months since. Now though, the newly aired developer livestream, Overwatch 2's executive producer Jared Noyce has confirmed the game's PvE mode is officially dead. So while the Overwatch 2 team is said to have created a bunch of amazing PvE content, as work on the mode has continued, including new missions, new enemies, and some truly great and ridiculous hero talents, Noyce admitted development on the PvE experience really hasn't made the progress we would have hoped. Unfortunately, he continued, the effort required to put all that together into a Blizzard quality experience that we can ship to you is huge, and really there's no end in sight. So we're left with another difficult choice. Do we continue to pull our effort into PvE, hoping we can land it at some point in the future, or do we stick with this set of values that we've aligned with and focused on, and focus on the live game, and focus on serving all of you? With everything that we've learned about what it takes to operate this game at the level you deserve, it's clear that we can't deliver on the original vision for PvE that was shown in 2019. So what that means is we won't be delivering that dedicated hero mode with talent trees, that long-term power progression. Those things just aren't in our plans anymore. We know this is going to be a disappointment to many of you, Noyce concluded, and to be perfectly honest, it's been really difficult for many of us, and a lot of folk on the team poured their heart and soul into that game. Overwatch 2's game director Aaron Keller added while that PvE won't go ahead as planned, Blizzard is still intending to make co-op gameplay and a co-op experience part of our live roadmap more often and with more variety than we had originally intended, and that will include some upcoming story-based events, kicking off a new narrative arc for Overwatch, with a lot more co-op features planned, some canon and some very not canon after that. We just want to give ourselves flexibility to explore the universe of Overwatch, its cast of heroes and villains, Keller added, as well as just try new things. Well, from one cancellation to a delay, and Hollow Knight Silksong has been delayed, and this one comes from Wesley LeBlanc out of Game Informer. Well, Team Cherry has delayed Hollow Knight Silksong, so the last we heard, Silksong was due out in the first half of 2023, but Team Cherry delayed the game without offering up a new window. So they said, we had planned to release in the first half of 2023, but development still continuing, Team Cherry marketing and publishing spokesperson Matthew Griffin told everyone on Twitter. We're excited about how the game is shaping up and it's gotten quite big, so we want to take our time to make the game as good as we can and expect more details from us once we get closer to the release. Now, as you can see, it's clear that Silksong won't be releasing in the first half of 2023 as originally planned, and there's no word or indication of what the game's new release date is. Team Cherry put out its first game, Hollow Knight, in 2017, and it was extremely well received. And while the game received several free DLCs, the studio is also working on a larger expansion of paid DLC starring Hornet from the game, And in 2019, the team announced this DLC had been expanded massively in scope, to the point where it being now a full sequel called Hollow Knight Silksong. Since then, the fans of the first Hollow Knight have wondered when they're ever going to be able to play the game. Okay, next up we got the European Commission approves Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. This one comes from Brendan Sinclair from GamesIndustry.biz. Well, the European Commission has given final approval to Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard after the Xbox maker made 10-year commitments to address regulator concerns in the growing cloud streaming market. While the Commission's preliminary investigation identified concerns around the deal having negative impacts in the console, PC, and multi-game subscription markets, after an in-depth look at the issues, it ultimately determined that some of those were non-issues. It agreed that Microsoft would have no incentive to withhold games from PlayStation consoles in Europe, as well as the European Economic Area, the EEA, and there's 4 PlayStation systems for every Xbox system, and the Call of Duty franchise is not as big in Europe as in other markets. As for competing subscription services, the Commission decided they would not put its games into them for fear of cannibalising sales. Therefore, the situation for third-party providers of multi-game subscription services would not change after the acquisition of Activision by Microsoft. However, the Commission did determine that the deal would harm competition in cloud gaming services and could further strengthen Microsoft's hold on PC operating systems with Windows. To address those concerns, Microsoft offered to give consumers in the EEA a free license to stream all current and future Activision Blizzard PC and console games for which they have a license, and to stream them through the cloud streaming service of their choice. Along with that, Microsoft also offered a free license to cloud streaming services to allow players in the EEA to stream any of Activision Blizzard's PC and console games. Both commitments have a 10-year term on them, and the Commission said Microsoft remedies also ensured the streaming games have the same quality and content as traditional downloaded titles. In a post on Twitter, Microsoft Vice Chair and President Brad Smith said the commitment to license Activision Blizzard games to competing companies would apply globally, so these commitments fully address the completion concerns identified by the Commission and represent a significant improvement for cloud game streaming compared to the current situation, the Commission said. They will empower millions of EEA consumers to stream Activision games using any cloud gaming service operated in the EEA, provided they are purchased in an online store or included in an active multi-game subscription in the EEA. Well, the deal still faces obstacles in the UK, where the Competition and Markets Authority has blocked it pending appeal, and in the US, where the Federal Trade Commission has filed a suit to stop the acquisition. The UK CMA released a statement of the EU approval, saying the UK, US and European competing authorities are unanimous this merger would harm the competition in cloud gaming. The CMA concluded that cloud gaming needs to continue as a free, competitive market to drive innovation and choice in this rapidly evolving sector. Well, that is it for the moment for all the latest news in the video game space, but next up, let's have a look at all the games coming soon. Okay, first of all, on May the 30th, so we've got Chicory, A Colourful Tale, coming to Xbox Series S and X and Xbox One. Also on the 30th, we've got Company of Heroes 3, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and System Shock, that one is coming to PC. Then on June the 1st, we've got Atrian Odyssey Origins Collection, that is Switch and PC. Also on the 1st, Killer Frequency, so PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, Quest, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch and PC. And then we've got Skatebird coming to PS5 and PS4, that is also coming on June the 1st. On June the 2nd, Street Fighter 6, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4 and PC. We've got Super Mega Baseball 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PS4, Xbox One, Switch and PC. We've got We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie. That is PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch and PC. On June the 6th, we've got Diablo 4. That is PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and also PC. And finally, we have Harmony, The Fall of Reverie. That is coming on June the 8th, and that is coming to Switch and PC. Well, that is it for everything in this week's episode. If you want to get involved in the show, get in contact through patreon.com/thisweekinvideogames, or you can contact me down there in the comments, or you can contact me on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast, Would really love to hear from you. Well, thank you so much for watching or for listening, and for more This Week in Video Games content like this, you can check out all the other podcasts in the feed. Now, if you enjoyed this podcast or found it useful, liking and sharing it would really help me out. Otherwise, you can find loads of other content in the feed or on the This Week in Video Games channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.